Hey, I'm Betty Lewis, AFC, founder of YoungRichRooted and your ADHD informed financial coach. What you're about to watch is a presentation I had the absolute honor of delivering for AFCPE, the accreditation for financial counseling and planning education. And y'all, the response was something I was not prepared for. The session is called How to Support the Anxious ADHD Mind, Coaching Clients Beyond Try Harder. The care framework and methodology you're about to experience is proprietary content developed through Young, Rich, and Rooted, made available to and with the support of AFCPE. And if you're watching this right now, it's because someone in your corner thought enough of you to make sure this resource found you. That means something. Don't take it lightly. So, whether you're a financial coach, a case manager, a counselor, an educator, or someone who has spent your whole life being told, just try harder, this is for you. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Let me know where you are watching from in the chat. What state are you guys watching from? And while you guys are putting that in here, I just want to remind you guys that today's session touches on AFCPE core competency number 2, which is assist a client in creating an action plan, as well as competency number 1, which is to set the stage and gather client information. Any statistical data provided as a reference here is in this slide. You're welcome to screenshot it so that you can explore the topics further. Okay, I see Wisconsin coming in, Hawaii. Oh, it's quite a few of you guys in here. I love it. Y'all all over. Washington State, Kansas City. All right. I am a Jersey girl. I'm originally from Jersey, but I'm way down here in Virginia Beach. And I just learned from Valerie that we're expecting 70-degree weather and snow today. And that is what it's like to live in Virginia. Have all of your layers on you. Okay. Oklahoma. I love this. Okay. So before we get started, I just want to give a trigger warning. This session may include some discussions of loss, grief, violence, and trauma. And I want to remind you that your health and wellness matter more than anything. So please prioritize your well-being. If you are feeling triggered, please step away or reach out to the appropriate resource for support. Okay, so we are going to discuss how to support an anxious and possibly ADHD mind. And I'm going to jump right in here so that we have time to cover all of the neural spiciness. We're going to kick things off with a little bit of engagement right out the door because I want us to all feel like financial best friends. And friends talk to each other, right? Right? Yes, we do. We talk to each other. And so here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to drop a number 1 in the chat if you have clients that you know have ADHD because they disclosed it to you. And then I want you to drop a 2 in the chat if you have clients that you strongly suspect have ADHD. And then I want you to drop a 3 in the chat if you think or know for certain that you have ADHD. You're like, it's me, friend. It's me. I know it's me. Okay. A couple more prompts. I want you guys to now drop a 4 in the chat if the types of clients that you tend to attract are in crisis mode, either financially or in some other part of their life. Okay, got some fours coming in. So far, I've seen every number come through here. And the last one is to drop a 5 in the chat if the clients that you attract tend to be navigating depression, trauma, grief, or anxiety. Okay, we got some 5s coming in here too. Okay. All right, thank y'all, friends.
If you put any of those numbers in the chat, this session is for you. Today is not about diagnosing your clients or yourself. It is about noticing the anxious or ADHD mind's needs before money plans can actually work. It's about discovering how to coach clients with ADHD or a dysregulated nervous system more compassionately. Now, before I really get all the way into it, let me be clear, okay? I am not a doctor. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a therapist. I'm none of those things. I am just a nerd who has nerded out on all things the brain and all things money. And so this presentation represents best practices that I have learned through my own journey with ADHD, my training as a financial coach and accredited financial counselor, and years of supporting gifted Black women and their diverse life experience. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get started. Quick show of hands or emojis in the chat, in this case. Who has ever known exactly what to do, but couldn't make yourself do it? Who's ever been there? Is it just me? Let me know if I'm the only one in here that's being honest today. If we came here to lie today, I'm not going to judge you, but okay. I will be the honest friend in the room, okay? I see some hands up. Some of y'all ain't going to let me be alone in the honesty, okay? I love that. Because let me tell you, I know I'm not the only one in here who has experienced this. I see a lot of hands and finger. I saw a church finger go up, right? A lot of us can relate to knowing better, but not doing better. And I have a feeling that we are all in good company. And so that's what we are unpacking today. So I am Betty Lewis. Most of my community knows me as B, the budgeting baddie. I am the accredited financial counselor and a certified ADHD coach. If you can't tell by now, you are going to find out real fast that I am a little unorthodox of a financial professional. Okay. I'm spicy, okay? But my clients seem to love my special blend of humor, chaos, and neural spicy seasoning. I season everything, okay? Like I season my soul food, okay? I spice it up, okay? Personally, I think that it makes both money and learning a little less boring. Y'all can let me know at the end if I succeed in not boring y'all to death. I'm gonna try not to anyway. But I specialize in helping gifted Black women with ADHD and women navigate anxiety, depression, grief, or trauma. And I help them become financially and emotionally more resilient. So my work lives in the intersection of money and mental health advocacy, because that's exactly where I had to rebuild my own life. Now, I've worked in finance for more than 20 years. Banking, credit counseling, financial aid, insurance, tax preparation, auditing, coaching. I love numbers. I always had. I had abacus as a toy as a child. I know I'm a weirdo. I did. Okay. Now, I might also be dating myself. And I knew numbers backwards and forwards. But in 2020, everything stopped. Y'all remember what happened in 2020? When the world just stopped? Y'all remember? The pandemic forced me to sit still long enough to notice how I really felt. For years, I had been surviving on overdrive. A single mom, the strong friend, the dependable employee, the reliable sister, pushing through grief, domestic violence abuse, sexual violence, and trauma without ever slowing down. I could just work through it. But when the world closed, my coping mechanisms did too. The depression that had been creeping in finally caught up with me. And I remember texting my boss, I need to clock out and I don't know when I'll be back. When I sent that message, I was thinking like, I don't know if it'll be an hour or 3 hours, but it was much longer. I went to the doctor because I felt like my brain was broken. Things that used to be easy suddenly weren't. The test from my psychologist came back. Severe depression? anxiety disorder, PTSD, and ADHD. Now, I didn't even know I could have PTSD unless I went to war. I was flabbergasted. Okay. My doctor said, "You are not imagining it when you say to me that your brain feels damaged. Your body has been living like it's running from a bear that never stops chasing you for who knows how long. That's kind of stress doesn't just wear you out, it rewires you." And then he continued and he said, "Your brain isn't irrevocably broken, but it is exhausted. And just like it was rewired in crisis, it can be rewired again through intentional self care." And so that conversation reframed everything that I knew about money, motivation, and willpower. Because even though I knew what to do with money, I couldn't always make myself do it. And that conversation put me on a mission to figure out why. And just like me, your client's problem quite often isn't knowledge. I know y'all are coaching brilliant people. I want you to consider that maybe it's not the money. Maybe it's not the math. Maybe it's not even your coaching. Maybe it's ADHD. Because a lot of us, when our clients are not taking action, we make that mean I'm just not good at coaching. And that's not true. So let us put this into perspective for a second. ADHD affects 4.4% of US adults. Now, that might not sound like much, but that's roughly 11 million people. 11 million adults trying to budget, pay bills, and imagine life where their brain isn't constantly sprinting, spiraling, distracted, and in survival mode. And most people around them don't even notice what's really happening. Up to 60% of adults with ADHD struggle to pay their bills on time, and nearly half are carrying chronic credit card debt. Chronic financial stress actually activates the same part of your brain regions as a physical threat. And it can reduce prefrontal cortex activity by as much as 30%. That's this part of your brain, by as much as 30%. And for Black women who are underdiagnosed and under supported, the risk of chronic dysregulation compounds. So when I say that your client's problem isn't knowledge, this is what I mean, because it isn't knowledge, it's capacity. So before we talk about ADHD specifically, we need to understand what happens in any human brain under stress. When the brain perceives a threat, whether it is financial, emotional, situational, or relational, it begins to reallocate resources. Some systems quiet down and others get louder. So first, let's talk about the brain regions that go offline. We're going to start with the prefrontal cortex, the CEO. Let me grab your forehead right here. The prefrontal cortex handles planning, decision making, impulse control, working memory, and time management. Under threat, blood flow in this area decreases by up to 30%. And this is why clients struggle to plan ahead, remember what they were supposed to do, control impulses, organize tasks, make complex decisions. Okay. And then there is the BRCA area, which is the communicator. This region supports speech and language. Under threat, it can partially or fully go offline, which is why clients may struggle to find words, go quiet under conflict, default to I don't know, have trouble explaining what they're feeling. There's the hippocampus, which is like the librarian. And so this region supports memory formation, learning, and context. Under stress, activity drops, which is why due dates disappear, new information doesn't stick, right? Time feels distorted. Everything kind of feels like a blur. And why recalling details accurately feels hard. Now let's talk about the brain regions that get louder. So there's the amygdala, which is like the smoke detector. This region detects threats and becomes 30 to 50% more active under stress. So everything feels dangerous when this is activated. Emotional reactions are going to escalate. Okay? Fights happen. And then there's the brainstem, which is your survival controller. And this is where fight, flight, freeze, or fawn take over. You guys heard of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn before, right? Growing up, it was only fight, fight, freeze. Fawn was a new one that I learned about several years ago. And I can totally see that as one of the survival responses. But when this is activated, logic is no longer in the driver's seat. Here's in this space, we're officially reacting and no longer responding. They sound similar, but they are not the same, reacting and responding. So here's why this matters for money. Managing money requires planning, impulse control, future orientation, memory, organization, and basic calculation. All of those rely on systems that are less accessible under threat. So when a client is dysregulated, the issue isn't effort, it's not motivation, it's capacity. Now I want to pause here because this part matters more than it looks like it does. So I want to talk about the relationship between stress and ADHD. Up until this point, everything that we've talked about applies to any human brain under stress. Anybody, all of y'all in this room, every client you've ever served, me. And so now I want to add a layer of ADHD on top of that, not as a diagnosis lesson, but as a way of understanding difference. Now, depending on how deep you go into neuroscience, you'll see anywhere from 5 to 10 brain regions named. It's probably a whole lot more, okay? And that can feel confusing to see all of these words I can barely pronounce. I'm not gonna lie. Okay? And so it'll feel like people are saying different things. But what has helped me make sense of all of this is that they're not really describing different brains. They're just describing the same system kind of zoomed in or zoomed out. So think of it like a camera lens. One view shows the whole landscape and the other zooms in on specific parts doing the work. So when we look at the brain from a wide angle lens, we're looking at the stress response. This happens in any brain when safety, stability, or control feel threatened, right? When the brain senses danger, and that danger can, again, it can be financial, emotional, situational, relational, but it senses this danger, the energy shifts away from the thinking part of your brain towards the survival part of your brain. So planning, memory, impulse control, and language get quieter, while threat detection and reflexive responses get louder. And that's why even smart people, financially literate clients, make decisions that they later regret when they were anxious, grieving, or overwhelmed. They didn't forget what they know. They still know the things, right? It's just that part of the brain that uses what they know is temporarily inaccessible. So this is the difference between regulation and dysregulation, access to logic versus protection mode. So now we're going to zoom in a little bit closer, especially for ADHD, okay? We're not explaining danger anymore. We're explaining difference. This particular view shows what's already happening inside of an ADHD brain, even on a calm day. Even on a calm day, particularly around dopamine, reward, attention, time, and emotional regulation. These differences explain why ADHD clients often struggle with starting tasks, sustaining effort, remembering steps, managing emotions, and following through, even when they genuinely want to. And this part is important because those challenges exist before stress even shows up. And when stress does show up, those differences don't disappear, they amplify. The reward center gets even louder. The error detector fires nonstop. The gut misreads cues, and the prefrontal cortex, the CEO, can't hold everything together and it decides, I'm taking vacation. Yeah. And so, what looks like procrastination, avoidance, or inconsistency is often a brain doing the best it can with the resources it has in that moment. The problem isn't about motivation or discipline, it's about wiring versus willpower. And if we're going to call it willpower, just understand that your clients at any given moment might not have enough power to back up their will due to no fault of their own. It's simply due to their brain's wiring and chemical imbalance issues. So, when a client with ADHD is dysregulated, they're often dealing with both executive dysfunction and stress dysfunction at the same time, which leaves them overloaded and less capable of what is needed. This is a survival response layered on top of ADHD wiring. And that's why knowing better doesn't always translate to doing better. And when we understand both, we stop asking, why won't they just do it? I told them exactly what to do, and they didn't do it. And we start asking, what does this brain need right now in order to do it? That's the shift from managing money to coaching capacity. So when a client isn't making the progress or taking the actions that you think that they should be taking, I want you to consider, maybe it's not the money, maybe it's not the math, maybe it's not their desire, their will, their seriousness. Maybe it's ADHD. And if it is, what does that brain need that others might not need to do this task today? So now I want to shift gears and I want to start talking about solutions and coaching best practices in the context of 7 executive functions that people with ADHD struggle with. So as we move through each executive function area, I want you to drop in the chat how you've seen this show up in your clients' financial behaviors. And then I'll show you how it is very likely to show up in the coaching relationships with you as well, and what's really happening underneath. So this is going to be a little engagement, okay? So I want you guys to respond in the chat. All right? So let's start with the first one, which is poor self-awareness and regulation challenges. Typically, this looks like them showing up scared, emotional, or anxious. In the comments, tell me how this has shown up in your client's financial behavior. Tell me how this shown up in your client's financial behavior. Spending way beyond means, blind spots in spending. You keep them coming because I may not get to read them all while we're live, but I absolutely plan to go back and look at your comments and see how they're showing up in your life. Extreme hoarding. I see a question mark. She's like, I'm not sure. Maybe I've not seen it. Inability to stick to plans, difficulty focusing on goals. Okay, we got a lot coming in here. Okay. So now as a coach, you might assume, hey, they're not taking this seriously. I might have to fire this client. When what could actually be happening is that they're hungry, they're tired, they're overstimulated, right? Because lack of self-awareness means that they didn't even notice that they didn't eat today. And so they can't focus on nothing you're talking about. They went all day long without eating. And now they got a coaching call with you at 7 p.m. Okay. Right. And so what's happening is that their amygdala is hijacked and it's not actually a genuine motivation issue. Okay. And so here is a best practice that you could implement. And for some coaches, this might not be your cup of tea. I'm gonna tell you, like, not every coach is they like, I'm not doing this part. And that's okay. The goal of this activity, though, is just to get your ideas flowing on how you can support your client. And what I do with my clients is I begin every coaching call with a grounding in check, a simple, how are you feeling today? I make them think beyond how they are feeling financially. I want them to notice and be more self-aware that they aren't feeling well physically, right? Or emotionally or mentally today. I want them to notice if that's happening today, because that will allow me to adjust my expectations for the session, and it helps them adjust their expectations of themselves. So they're not bullying themselves and feeling ashamed of what they accomplish. What's important here is that you're not diagnosing them. You want to ask the kinds of questions that help them realize what their current state is and what they need most themselves. So step one is really to observe and help them observe. You could also try co-regulating with them, do some breath work together. Again, not all coaches are going to be into this, but you can say, do we need to take a couple deep breaths together? Sometimes, depending on what they have going on, I suggest rescheduling to prioritize rest. Coaching somebody who's running on 2 hours of sleep is not going to be productive for either of you. Okay. So next one is poor working memory. How has this shown up in your client's behavior? How has poor working memory shown up in your clients? Forgetting what they have succeeded at? Ooh, that's a good one. Doesn't remember what prescriptions, late for appointments. Ooh, very good one. No progress on tasks or actions. Not remembering what institution is, it cuts off a little bit of that. Forgetting the whole appointment entirely. Yes. Right. Very, very common. And so, what you might assume as a coach, because they're forgetting tasks and instructions, is that they weren't listening. But what's actually could be happening is that stress is blocking memory encoding. And so, what you can do as a financial coach to support them is send recaps, share notes, have visible trackers, gentle repetition. These are all little things that you could do to support their working memory. The next executive function that we're going to talk about is time blindness, which kind of ties in a little bit, sort of, into working memory at times. They can look similar. So tell me how this has shown up in your clients' lives, financially or in your relationship as a coach client. Time blindness. Constant rescheduling, yes, right? Because they don't cram too many things they thought they could do before your appointment. Now they need to reschedule, being late, barely noticed, late, can't organize time payments, no idea how long they've been engaging. Yep, always late, not prioritizing. Y'all are hearing it. Y'all are experiencing it. Doesn't know when stuff is due. Okay. Time blindness absolutely looks like missed sessions or deadlines, right? That's one way that it shows up. And so for you as a coach, what you might be thinking is they're irresponsible. They're just Irresponsible. That's probably something that we said to our kids who have ADHD. They're just, you're not being responsible. I will talk to our clients like that way, but I'm gonna tell you, this work has made me a better parent. I was like, ooh, got that wrong. So you weren't just ignoring me. You literally forgot. Okay. All right. And so what could actually be happening for your client is a neurological distortion of time. Okay. It is not them not respecting your time, that they don't care about this appointment and that it's not important to them. Okay. And so what you can do as a coach, a best practice that you can implement to help support this obstacle is to provide them with 5 to 15-minute reminder buffers. And I know a lot of you probably are like, I send a reminder the night before, and I love that for you. I love that for them. And I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. We still are going to forget 5 minutes before the appointment that we could be sitting there waiting to log in, waiting to log in. And then it's like we blink and an hour went by and we missed the whole appointment. So send a little text reminder or something that triggers them. That see, somebody in here said, I've been there, right? Sending a little text reminder that triggers them 5 to 15 minutes before the session is close enough to the session that they have a better chance of not losing track of time and getting into that call on time. Okay. And the other thing that you can do to support is not to have back-to-back ADHD clients. As a financial coach of neurotypical people, you can probably stack them things right behind each other. But for me, I have to have larger buffer windows between my client calls, both for me and for them. But that also means that I can't see as many clients in a day as a coach who coaches neurotypical people. So I have to understand that as a part of my practice. All right. Next is motivation and dopamine. And so that can look like hyper focus and then crashing. They called you up. I'm so excited. I can't wait to do this. Oh my God, I want to join your program. And then day of session or group class, nothing. They downloaded the course, swiped their card with excitement. They downloaded the app. They did it for about a week, right? It looks like they set up the whole system. They love that part. Cheers. We love to set up something, okay? All right. They did all of that. And then when it came to the tracking, the tasking, they're like, this ain't it. This ain't it. And they just kind of fell off. Okay. Bell curve. I like that. You are all my people. It sounds like y'all are finding each other in this comments, and I love that for y'all. New friendships are being made. It's true. Misery loves company. We do. All right. And so for dopamine and motivation, what you might assume as a coach is that they just lack discipline. They're just not disciplined. If you could just be more disciplined. Just be more disciplined, right? When what can actually be happening is dopamine spikes and drops. Where a neurotypical person's dopamine levels are nice and regulated, we out here looking like the stock market. Not in the good way. Okay. And so what you can do as a financial coach, a best practice that you can put into place to support somebody who's dealing with that issue is to gamify the process, to give them the dopamine hits that they need to get back online. And one simple way that you can do that without it actually being a game is to create micro goals. A lot of time we have our clients set like really long goals, but they need those mini steps, not just because they struggle with executive functioning and knowing how to break them up for themselves, but also so that they have a sense of like achievement more frequently. So they're getting these dopamine hits every time they hit a micro goal, which gets me to the next thing that you can do as a coach to support this obstacle is to celebrate small wins. The big wins are amazing, but the small wins are important too, just to keep them excited and going, that they feel like I'm making progress, even when the number hasn't changed. Okay. How micro is micro? That probably depends on your client of what that looks like for your client. also think it's helpful to give them like a right now goal, like something that could feel like a little win in this moment, because task initiation is very hard as well. And so if you can kind of get the ball rolling before the session ends, they're more likely to be able to follow through at the end, because task initiation is a lot harder than task shifting. Great question. Where I leave off at. Working memory. The next one is emotional regulation and RSD. Okay, this one was a huge one for me. A huge one for me. It is the reason why Valerie had to talk to me a few times over the last, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years, that she's been trying to get me to present, because I really struggle with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which 70% of people with ADHD struggle with. Okay, so I would like to know how you have seen this with your clients. What does this look like? And how do you think this might be affecting your clients' finances? So put that in the chat. So this is both emotional regulation as well as RSD. And these are two really different problems. They probably deserved a line of their own, to be honest with you, because they function a little bit differently. But you can reply to either of them. Constantly apologizing, guilty about going to sessions, past trauma, shame triggered, not pursuing financial goals. Fear of asking for promotions or raises. Now you in my business. Get out of my diary, friend. Get out of my diary. And to my point about this presentation, not taking advantage of opportunities. I almost missed out on getting to know all of y'all, right? Because rejection sensitivity. Even when you're hunting me down, I'm in my mind telling myself, they're just being nice. They're not really interested. You're not good at this, right? And so for your clients, they may be experiencing the same things. Like you said, they're not applying for jobs. They're not setting boundaries with money, right? They're overgiving, right? They're emotionally spending, right? Emotionally giving. It could also look like them being defensive when you share information, or withdrawn. So you have a moment where you're sharing some information and they just seem to completely check out on you, right? Or they get really defensive. Okay. And so you might be thinking, they're just too sensitive. It's not that serious. Call the company and ask for a refund. Why is this such a hard task? Sounds simple, but it's not easy. Because in their mind, they're going to tell me no, and then they're spiraling a string of other events that's going to happen when they tell them no. They're going to talk about me to their friends and their coworkers. They're going to mark my account. They're going to tell me never take a right. They got a spiral of things that occurs, right? So just make the phone call. It's a hard ask, okay? And so what actually could be happening is that they're having a physiological pain response to perceived disappointment. So what you can do as a coach is you can validate them first, reframe with feedback. So to paint like if they have a distorted view of what no means, of what rejection means for them, you can help them reframe it. It's something that I often do with my clients is I'll ask them, what are you telling yourself right now? Tell me right now, when I asked you to do this task, is I physically saw you shift. Something's happening. You're not saying it with your words, but your body language is telling me something's going on. I'm just curious. What are the words that your brain just told you just now? I want to hear them, because most of the time you'll find that they just told them something related in this zone. Well, I'm not qualified. Well, if I apply, they're probably going to ask me for blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. Right? But we got to catch it to help them reframe it. We need to observe what's occurring, and then help them reframe it. We need to normalize the experience that they're having, that the emotions that they're having, they're not bad for having them. right? I feel like I grew up in a culture of you're supposed to be strong. Does that mean I'm supposed to be not human? That these feelings that I have are just for play? I don't know what the point of my feelings are, right? And so you can validate them first, reframe the feedback, and then really avoid using should language because that just encourages a feeling of shame, which triggers that emotional spiral that we just talked about. Next is planning and systems. And so that looks like, well, first you tell me, how have you seen this show up in your client's life where it is either between their finances or between their interactions with you? How do you see this show up? Planning and systems. They're struggling with planning and systems. Want to stick with the system. Sometimes simple is better. Absolutely. Literally, no system at all. We'll create, but not use it. We love that. I told y'all we love building stuff out. Building, not maintenance. I have to schedule the next appointment, give up before giving it a chance. Creation of elaborate goals or systems. Sorry if I'm not reading your whole comment. It's only because it's showing me a portion of it, but I'm gonna go back and read them all thoroughly. A million systems. And I'm gonna guess none of them are being used, was the rest of that sentence. Okay, so yeah, they build plans but never starts. That's how it probably shows up. And so you might be thinking as a coach that they lack follow through. You might be thinking they don't want it that bad. I put the system right here. I set it up for them. Why aren't they using the system? I set it up. I made it easy for them. Why aren't they using the system? Or maybe that the system is bad, or maybe I'm a bad coach, right? What they really could be experiencing is executive fatigue, decision overload. It is very possible that the system that is being provided has too many thinking points. And I think somebody said in the comments earlier, simple is better. One thing an ADHD person does not have a problem with is ideating, creating ideas. We got a lot of options in our mind already. And what they might need from you as a coach is to narrow that down to help them. This is such a great breakdown. Thank you. I'm glad this is helping. And so, what you could do as a coach is to start smaller, make the system simple, body double during sessions, meaning a lot of my clients, I tell them all the time, like, listen, I'm gonna give you homework because I want to empower you to have an opportunity to try this on your own. But your main homework is showing up. So if you don't get it done between the sessions, then that's okay. We'll use the session to execute it here. That's fine. That's what I'm here for. But if you can, wonderful. But I don't want you to not show up. And this is me addressing rejection sensitivity because you're afraid that you've disappointed me or you've upset me because you didn't do your homework. The only thing that will upset me is you not showing up because you think you're going to upset me. Because it's not going to upset me. Your homework is to show up. Okay. And so if you can't provide body doubling for them, you can encourage them, say, hey, do this task with a friend. Do this task at Barnes and Noble. I love going to like Starbucks and Barnes and Noble. Those people don't know they my coworkers. They my body doubles. I go there just because sometimes I just can't get the task done at home. Like I need imaginary peer pressure. Okay. So you can give them that idea, or you can have them complete the task during the sessions. Okay. So that's one way that you can support planning and systems. Do the tracking and sessions. This is the time that we do it. And of course, that's going to depend on how frequently you meet with your customer, whether that makes sense for you, what type of coaching offer you have. And the last executive function that we're going to tackle today, and like I said, there's more obstacles that we have, but these are the ones that I'm sharing with you guys today, is overcommitment and forgetfulness. And so that looks like, you guys tell me how that shows up in their finances. Over committing and forgetfulness, how does that show up in their not saying no? Yep. I can do all the things. Oh, yeah. Because can't we? Our neurodivergent brain means that we can be in multiple places at one time. Trying to take on too much at once. Client is doing a session on her lunch break, overcommitting, overextending themselves. Yes, 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 yes. Expense changes that are not realistic. Yes, 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 absolutely. Right? Probably also not having boundaries, not being able to say no, overcommitting. Like, yeah, I can do that. Taking on 1,500 tasks that their boss gave them to do, which is priming them up to crash out eventually, and then not being able to deliver on them, which affects their performance review, which affects their future pay, right? Because they were uncomfortable, rejection sensitivity, saying, I think I'm at my capacity right now. And then they said, yes, I'll take on this task, even though their brain was like, no, please, dear God, no. Okay. Okay. I warned y'all I wasn't going to be like suit and tie boring in here. So I hope y'all laughing along with me on the other side of the screen. Okay. So what you might be saying to yourself as a coach is they don't mean what they say. They don't mean what they say. They're liars. They're untrustworthy. When it's very possible that they made a very sincere yes. They did mean it when they said it. They made it with temporary energy and distorted understanding of their capacity. And so, what you can do as a coach is to revisit the goals each session and normalize adjustments based on capacity. Make that a normal thing that you're allowed to look at what you said you could do last week and ask yourself, does this still feel like, and not because you're encouraging them to not aggressively pursue their goals, but to get them a practice of understanding that was this realistic? Was I especially delusional that day? Okay. We want them to remain ambitious. So everything that we've covered fits into one simple rhythm: observe, normalize, and empower. Okay. So for observing, you're noticing dysregulation without diagnosing or judging. And then you're normalizing by removing shame. You are working together to name what's happening so that they can feel seen and supported. And then to empower, you're going to co-create, heavy emphasis on the co-create, one doable next step. You're not lowering the bar when you do this. You are widening the path. A wider path means more clients have a fighting chance of reaching their destination. Now, as a financial counselor, one of the most compassionate things that you can do is just to be honest with yourself and with your clients. Not everyone is called to coach through dysregulation. They're not all called to coach through grief or trauma. Some of us are still navigating our own past, our own trauma, and our own patience level. You like, look, I'm trying to, you triggering me, my trauma. Like I can't, right? And so if lateness and inconsistency or emotional intensities are triggers for you, that is not a flaw. It's feedback and it's okay. Sometimes the kindest move is a referral. The brain wiring you love to coach through is needed too. Neurotypical people need you too. Okay, you don't have to be everybody's coach. Build relationships with other specialists, ADHD coaches, financial therapists, divorce coaches, so that you can hand off clients joyfully instead of guiltily. I am quick to, I know a friend. I know a few people. I got a big financial coach community, and I know somebody who deals with XY. Here's a couple of people I can send you that you can call and interview and see if they're a good fit for you. Because I actually think that the problem you're dealing with, they solve better. And I just care mostly about you getting the help that you need, not me being the person who solves it. So when somebody comes to me with well, in my own practice, I primarily work with gifted Black women with ADHD or women managing anxiety, depression, grief, trauma. And so when people come to me with maybe something like a complex divorce, I refer them to coaches who specialize in that because they have built their systems and their legal relationships. They friends with divorce attorneys and accountants who focus on divorce, like all of the divorce related things. Okay. I'm like, I know a friend. Okay. They have built their systems and their relationships around that, just like I have built mine with mental health professionals and ADHD organizations like ADDA and Attitude Magazine. Okay. So your best work comes from the clients your nervous system feels safe supporting. And their best growth comes from coaches who feel grounded supporting them. I want to close with this. One of the most important things that I have learned in this work is that no single coach is meant to hold all of this. I need other people who do what I do too, right? Some of you love systems and spreadsheets. Some of you love behavioral change. Some of you are incredible at navigating divorce, real estate, student loan, investments, tax strategies. Some of you love creating amazing plans that your clients can follow independently. You're like, I'm going to set it up and you're going to knock them down, right? And some clients need that. They're like, I don't need you to hold my hand. I just need you to tell me what to do. Some prefer to work with men, women, couples, service members, business owners, LGBTQIA+. I hope I got all them letters. Some only want to work with college students. They like, give me the kids. Grown-ups get on my nerves. Some want to work with little kids. They like, I want to help the littles. Okay. And some of us specialize in working at the intersection of money and mental health advocacy. There is an endless list of specialties that we all can and already do bring to the table. And that diversity is a strength. It's not a gap. It's not a flaw. It's amazing. And so if today helped you see a client, maybe one you already have, more compassionately, or maybe one in the future, more compassionately, if it helped you realize, hey, I have a client who might need a different kind of support, or if it confirmed that your zone of genius matters just as much as mine, because it does, can y'all just type love in the chat so that I know that you're like, man, I needed to hear this today. I needed to hear this today. If this presentation left an impression on you, then I would love to stay connected. I told y'all in the beginning I wanted to be friends. Y'all wouldn't believe I'm shy in real life, right? I don't seem like this right now. I had to work on my RSD. Okay. The easiest way to connect with me and to stay connected is on LinkedIn. And while you're there, if you feel like hyping a girl up and endorsing my presentation skills, I'm not going to stop you, friend. Go in there in the little section of LinkedIn where they be like, oh, endorsed or, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to reject it. I'm going to accept the tags, all the things. But if you have a touch of ADHD like I do and are prone to forgetting, go ahead and screenshot this page so that you can at least connect, because I don't know everything and I don't even want to pretend that I do. We have so much to learn from each other. And I'm sure that all of y'all got some amazing nuggets to share with me from this session that will help me too. And so I'm addicted to learning and I would love to share resources, collaborate, if it makes sense, and learn each other's specialties so that we can send better clients to each other. If you have ever had a client where you're thinking, this feels like more than just money, I hope that today gave you the language to find solutions with your clients. And I hope that I have inspired you to give yourself permission to pause, to collaborate, to refer to the appropriate professional with confidence. And as I always say to my clients, and I will leave you with this, financial self-care always begins with actual self-care. So as you care for others, please don't forget to care for you too. Thank you for the work you do and for doing it thoughtfully.
Amazing. Betty, oh my, I know it's hard to talk into this abyss and you don't, it's like there's not a lot of feedback, but everyone is so excited. You're getting such great comments. We held strong at the lunch hour during the day, about 100 throughout the whole presentation, and like double that registered. We just appreciate you so much. This was an incredible presentation. Like Betty mentioned, I ran into her volunteering at a local high school and I've been nudging her ever since because I knew it would be this amazing. This was an incredible presentation. We are all going to be better coaches because of it. And we almost missed out. So we're so glad that you said yes and came. All right. Well, with that, that hour flew by. I could listen to you talk all day. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you to everyone in the chat for joining us today and for being such a great community. I told Betty how awesome it was and that it would be a great experience, and it was. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks so much, everybody. Goodbye.
And that right there is the CARE framework. Consider the context, adjust your assumptions, reshape your response, engage with empathy. Because compassion activates real engagement, and context always reshapes expectations. If this presentation shifted something for you, if you saw a client in these words, or maybe even yourself, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment, send me a message, or visit me at www.youngrichRooted.com. And if you're thinking about bringing this framework to your organization, your team, or your community, let's talk. This work was built to travel. I'm B, and I'll see you in the next room.